Welcome back to Conversations with Corey, a program where I will sit down with friends or peers to have an open and honest conversation about a topic that aligns with our DE&I value, stand for equality. I'm really excited for today's conversation. It's something I am personally passionate about, growing and developing diverse talent. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. As a company, we first need to provide access. Once there is access, we need to invest to provide opportunity. Once there is access and opportunity, it leads to greater and diverse representation. Today, we're going to focus on the opportunity section and how we are investing in Black talent at AT&T. We're going to check in with a good friend of mine, Maurice Jones. Maurice is the CEO of 110. 110 is a nonprofit coalition committed to hiring and promoting 1 million Black individuals over the next 10 years, and specifically Black Americans who do not have a traditional 4-year degree. In 2020, AT&T committed $1.5 million and became a partner in helping 110 reach that goal. Then, to get more insight on the experience of someone who has 110 qualifications, we have Anna Dixon. Anna is a high-performing AT&T employee who joined the company without a 4-year degree at the time that she was hired. And now she's found success since then in her role. So Maurice, welcome to Conversations with Corey. Do you mind sharing with the audience a little more about your background?
Sure. Look, I'm just a country boy from Virginia. That's the bottom line. I was raised by grandparents on a farm in a town of 1,200. My grandfather was born in 1914, went to school for 6 years in a barn, and because he was Black, or as they called us then, colored, he did not have the opportunity to do more formal education. He went to work. My grandmother was born in 1919, lived in town, as we say, and was able to walk to the local segregated colored school and got a high school diploma after 11 years. I am their grandson. My experiences were shaped by my being with them, being brought up by them in that setting. I went on from there because of their love, eventually got a law degree, practiced law for a while, worked in the federal government for 2 tours of duty, the state government of Virginia for 2 tours of duty, ran a newspaper, ran a big community development financial institution, and now I'm at 110.
Really impressive background. And it's one of the things that I love about Maurice is his humility. But look, I'll be real honest with you. In the context of Black History Month, and we talk about Black future makers at AT&T during Black History Month, Maurice is one of those people. He really is. That's why I'm encouraging you to go learn more about his story and his background and his accomplishments, because he personifies what a Black future maker is. So our other guest that we're excited to spend some time with today and learn a little more about is Anna. So Anna, why don't you share with us a little more about your background before we dive into the conversation?
I haven't been as many places as Maurice. I've only as an adult worked for 2 companies. As a hairstylist, I was managing a salon for 8 years, and then a family member told me that at the time it was Southwestern Bell would be a great place to work. And so I applied and came on over here, and I've been here for the last 24, almost 25 years.
Cool. And you've had a really successful run in career during those 20 or 24 years, which we may talk a little more about here. So Maurice, you and I both mentioned that 110 and this coalition we formed and we're working is really focused on employing Black individuals in these family-sustaining jobs, but they do not have to have 4-year degrees, traditional 4-year degrees. The other data point that may be a surprise is that here at AT&T, the overwhelming majority of our roles, our jobs, do not require a 4-year degree. But I want to get your thoughts on, hey, how is that, number one, playing out around the country with your work around 110? And then just your thoughts on, for so long, we've had this focus on job applicants having to have a 4-year degree.
I think we can take a step back and think about where we are in the country, right? It continues to travel through a pandemic that has had a disproportionately adverse impact on Black talent and other communities of color. That was followed by a recession, which had the same disproportionately adverse impact on the same communities of color. All of those events have really caused people and organizations to step back and take a second look at America and to ask the question, are we who we want to be? Are we as good as we can be? And more and more and more folks have said no. And 110 was formed as a result of some CEOs of companies posing that question and answering no, but also answering, but we can do something about it. And what we can do is leverage jobs as a real vehicle for helping people to catapult into the middle class and to close these disparities of opportunity and power and wealth. And when you look around the country today, what you find is jobs that pay $60,000 and above, on paper, 79% of them require a 4-year degree. Jobs that pay $40,000 and above, on paper, 71% of them require a 4-year degree. But yet, if you look at talent, Black talent in the workforce, ages 25 and above, 76% of us do not yet have a 4-year degree. By the way, that number is 66% of all talent, period. This focus on skills and not credentials is really about removing a systemic barrier to earning your way into the middle class in America. So what I am really pleased about and encouraged about is we're seeing great companies like AT&T live or walk the walk. In other words, they're saying, look, this is about skills.
Anna, let's bring you into the conversation because you are personification of the work that we are trying to accomplish here with 110. When you joined AT&T, you did not have a 4-year degree at the time. So why don't you share with us what challenges, if any, you've had in going through that process of joining without the 4-year degree, and then since you've been here and building your career?
My journey has been a blessed journey. I've been able to move up within the company within a short period of time without my degree. I actually started as a revenue management representative. Within 2 years, I was able to get promoted to a manager, and then within a year and a few months later, I was promoted again. And all of that I did prior to having that degree because I was able to use the resources and the people within my organization to help me. And they saw and allowed me to display those leadership skills that I had in order to move up that ladder.
What was it like? Did you, in terms of you competing for those roles to get promoted, advancement without having that degree?
I had a very wonderful group of managers supporting me. When I started with AT&T, I was told that you had to be recommended to be in management. So I went in initial training, letting them know that was my goal, and they surrounded me and supported me and mentored me along the way. So I didn't necessarily have the challenges until I got that second promotion, and I was in the room with people who had been here for 20 years, and I had been here for a little more than 2. That's where the challenges came in. But I also grew in so many ways, and it set the foundation for who I am and where I am today.
Cool. Maurice, you mentioned a little earlier access. You are working with not only AT&T, with a number of companies across the country. What would you recommend other companies do to help build that talent pipeline?
There are 10 million jobs available in America today. Well, guess what? There are 11 million underemployed Black folks in the country today. What companies have to make sure they're doing is diversifying their channels through which they're finding talent and eliminating those self-inflicted wounds, I call it, the barriers that they're putting up that can keep an honor from ever becoming part of your family, because you're missing genius when you do that.
I agree with you. And I think the companies have to be really intentional about doing this work. So Anna, I want you to give some advice, because there are a lot of folks who are listening to us today that were like you, right, a few years ago. What advice would you give to that individual in terms of how to move forward to chase that opportunity?
I think first I would say take that next step of faith, because I am in a role that I would have never imagined having. It's not something I would have applied for. So take that next step of faith and try something that may not be what you think is your thing. Once you're in that company, I say find a mentor. Mentors and network. Those two things I think are most important, because once you have somebody in your corner that's at that table for you, that sees something in you that you may not even see in yourself, the rest will come. The rest will come. And you never know what the end result could be.
I love your recommendation, your advice to seek out those mentors and develop that network. Maurice, I want you to speak to this point too, because I know one of the things we want to be really clear about the work that 110 is doing in our partnership here. We're not discouraging people from obtaining a 4-year degree. So Maurice, will you talk to that as you go around the country having these conversations? How do you deliver both of those messages?
Yeah, definitely not discouraging. In fact, the hope is that people will go on and get their 4-year degree and maybe their master's and maybe their PhD. The point of this is we shouldn't have barriers that aren't relevant to the skills needed to earn your way so that you can eventually get a degree. The notion that everybody has one chance to get a 4-year degree and that has to be before you're 21 years old doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We have to be thinking about improving yourself and earning degrees and continuing your development and education as a lifelong journey. We're saying focus on the skills you need to earn your way into a job that pays a family-sustaining wage, and continue to focus on continuing education as a lifelong journey.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It just aligns with everything we're doing here at AT&T and what we want to accomplish and what we would love to accomplish specifically in communities of color and the Black community around bridging the gaps, creating economic empowerment, because to your point, Maurice, it just strengthens that entire ecosystem. So Anna, Maurice, thanks again. Keep up the work. Maurice, we're going to keep partnering with you, man, till we hit that target.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
To learn more about AT&T, subscribe to this channel, visit the AT&T Newsroom, or watch more videos in the playlist seen here.